She's the other woman on the presidential ballot, a doctor and the Green Party's 2012 candidate for president. This year, Dr. Jill Stein is back on the campaign trail once again, the Green Party's presidential nominee. Dr. Stein, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Good to be with you, Chris.
Let's start with your platform in this campaign. We're going to put it up on the screen. You call for Medicare for all, a guaranteed federal job for anyone who wants one, free college tuition, canceling all student loan debt, cutting military spending by 50%, and ending all wars and all drone attacks. Dr. Stein, how much will that cost, and how are you going to pay for it?
So let me say first, we don't call for ending all wars, but we call for ending these catastrophic regime change wars that have cost us $6 trillion by the time we've paid for the health care of our wounded veterans. That's according to a recent Harvard study. And remember, this is half, more than half of our discretionary budget. So that's part of how we pay for things. Another way we pay for things, in fact, we call for a Green New Deal, an emergency jobs program to fix the emergency of climate change. And the great thing, Chris, is that this program pays for itself. And I can say this as a medical doctor, it turns out we get so much healthier by eliminating fossil fuel pollution. 200,000 deaths every year, in fact, from fossil fuel pollution. We get so much healthier that the savings in healthcare alone is enough to pay for the green energy transition.
Now, the Washington Post...
And something like...
Well, let me just pick up. The Washington Post is a pretty liberal newspaper. After interviewing you, this is an editorial that they wrote. The headline, Jill Stein's fairy tale candidacy. And in it, they said this: Jill Stein's policy ideas are poorly formed and wildly impractical. Dr. Stein, that's not good.
Well, I think they called me actually a fairy tale campaign, to which I would answer, in fact, we are living with a couple of nightmare campaigns right now that the American people object to at absolutely unprecedented levels. The American people are saying that politics as usual has been throwing them under the bus, and in fact, the two major party candidates have the highest ratings of disapproval and distrust of any candidate anywhere at any time throughout our history. So what I'm saying is what the American people are calling for. 76% of Americans are saying we need to open up the debates. There are actually 4 candidates on the ballot for just about every American. And in America, we not only have a right to vote, we have a right to know who we can vote for. Donald Trump actually has received more than $4 billion in free media, and Hillary Clinton over $2 billion. I've received almost none, and yet still I'm coming up 4 or 5% in the polls with zero media, which tells you there is word of mouth going on out there because a generation of young people is locked into debt. And referring to your question about how do we pay for it, somehow we came up with the money. It turned out to be about $16 trillion to bail out the crooks on Wall Street who crashed the economy. Isn't it time that we bail out an entire generation that's basically been locked in debt, doesn't have the jobs to earn their way out of that college debt? What is more important to us than liberating a generation who can lead the way forward, not only on our economy, but in all of the social issues that we have in front of us? It's always been young people.
Let me pick up on another aspect of your plan, and that's the foreign policy aspect. You call for cutting Pentagon spending in half. You would like to eliminate, you say you would like to eliminate, although you have a caveat there, you may not be able to, all military bases, U.S. military bases around the world. Question, how would you fight ISIS?
Very good point. We would not continue to do the same thing that has failed catastrophically since 9/11, since the trade towers came down. Because what have we done with this $6 trillion, mind you, for just Iraq and Afghanistan alone, which, by the way, costs every American household $50,000 for those 2 wars alone? What have we done with this policy of regime change, this war on terror?
Okay, but how would you fight ISIS?
We've created failed states, mass refugee I'll tell you in one sec. Failed states, mass refugee migrations, and worse terrorist threats, which is the point. It's not getting better. Every terrorist cause we've been fighting has only been increased and gotten stronger by dropping bombs and shooting them up with bullets. We need a weapons embargo to the Middle East, since we are supplying the majority of weapons which get out to all sides. We call for a weapons embargo, and we call for a freeze on the funding, including our allies. Hillary Clinton identified the Saudis as still the major funder of
what are you going
Sunni
to do
jihad terror
about
around
ISIS
the world.
and the people in Iraq and Syria who have also now developed plans? They have struck in the United States, they've struck in France, they've struck in Belgium and a number of other places. How are you going to protect us from them?
So one thing we have to do is not keep doing what we've been doing, which has only made them stronger. Each terrorist threat has gotten worse. We created ISIS out of the chaos of Iraq. So let's not keep doing a proven
I understand what you say we
strategy.
shouldn't do. What should we do?
That's why we're calling, yes. What we should do is deprive them of weapons, deprive them of funding, freeze the bank accounts of our allies that continue to fund these terrorist enterprises, and close the border from Turkey so that the militias cannot cross over into Iraq and into Syria. We created this problem by funding it, by arming it, we and our allies. Remember, this goes back to Afghanistan, where we created this in order to fight the Russians and the Soviet Union by beefing up the Mujahideen and creating this international terrorist enterprise.
I think a lot of people are going to question. We have to move on.
The madrasas.
But let me simply say, I think a lot of people are going to question whether we were responsible for Al Qaeda and we were responsible for ISIS. But let me move on, because you talked about the fact that you said
this is why it should be debated, Chris.
Well, that's why we have you. That's why we're having you on the show,
because the American people are not happy with the way it's going right now.
Let me ask.
Well, I think.
Let me ask you, if I may, about Hillary Clinton, because you talk about hers as a nightmare candidacy. You've said some pretty tough things about her. You've said that she has had a horrific career. Your words. You say that she's too big to jail. What's wrong with Hillary Clinton?
Well, what I said about Hillary Clinton is that she cannot be the good guy in the white hat while Donald Trump is the bad guy in the black hat. Donald Trump says despicable things, but Hillary Clinton, unfortunately, has a record for doing many terrible things. Donald Trump talks about deporting Muslims. Unfortunately, Hillary Clinton has been bombing Muslims. 1 million people killed in Iraq alone, and we've only created a greater catastrophe there. The Republicans are the party of hate and fear-mongering, but the Democrats are the party of deportation, detention, and night raids for immigrants who, in many cases, have been forced to flee into this country as refugees from NAFTA, which Hillary Clinton and Bill gave the thumbs up to, in fact, signed, and Wall Street deregulation, which led to the disappearance of 9 million jobs here in America.
Dr.
So
Stein?
the things that are terrible right now in our economy are very much go back to the policies of the Clintons as much as the Republicans.
Dr. Stein, we're going to have to leave it there. We thank you very much for coming on. And you can't say that you've had zero media exposure anymore, because you've been here. Thanks so much.
And I appreciate it. And I look forward to getting into the debates so the American people can hear the full story.
Thank you.